so much chaos and like everything's on fire, and it's like that dog meme where it's like, this is fine. Okay, hi, hey, I hope you're doing well. If you're new around here, my name is Brandy. I'm a digital artist. I recently started doing commissions again. I got a couple of questions on Instagram asking if I had any sort of advice for starting commissions, and I basically just want to stuff all of the information that I know about commissions into this video. So if you're thinking about starting commissions or you're not really sure how to price commissions, stuff like that, I'm going to go over all of that. I think a common question for artists who want to get started with commissions is like, how do you know that you're ready to do commissions? And I think the answer to this question really relies on you objectively looking at your art and asking yourself, do you think that people would be willing to pay for this type of art? If the answer is no, I think you should find out why. Like, what specifically makes you say that? Because if it's like an art skill thing, that's something that you can work on and improve. This might sound kind of harsh, but there is a baseline that you want to get your art to where you feel like you can comfortably start asking for commissions. And again, you do have to be fair to yourself. Like, every artist is going to critique themselves to some extent. You have to be very objective here, because even if your art is not quite where you want to be, you can still get commission work. You don't have to have insane art skills to get commissions. Like, let's say the baseline for commission work is like art skill at this level. You don't have to be way up here. Like, you can be at the baseline level and still get commission work. And that kind of plays into pricing and stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I just want you to know, like, you don't have to be the absolute most incredible best artist out there to do commissions. I actually think commissions are a great way to improve your art and get better and kind of step out of your comfort zone and try drawing things you don't normally draw. So it is a great way to sort of improve your skills, but I do feel like you kind of have to be at a baseline to get people interested in purchasing art from you. Sometimes people think that you have to have a huge following online, and I would actually say that you don't have to have 100,000 followers to do commissions. I don't have 100,000 followers. When I first started commissions, I think I maybe had 1,000 followers on Instagram, and I was able to do like 3 or 4 commissions at that time. It all kind of depends on your audience and how engaged they are, how much they like your work, and those sort of things. So don't feel like you have to have this huge following in order to do commissions. Like, you really don't. To me, it's actually better to have a smaller following, because if you are brand new to doing commissions, you can kind of just like waddle into the kiddie pool, you know? Like, you don't have to like jump over into the deep end and get so much chaos and like everything's on fire, and it's like that dog meme where it's like, this is fine. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. You can just gently dip your toe into the world of commissioning and go from there. So I think a smaller following is actually like not a bad thing if you're brand new to commissions, and especially if you're nervous about doing commissions. Helps you kind of get that experience without like overwhelming you. And that sort of brings us into pricing. So pricing is a little bit tricky when it comes to commissions. Whenever I started doing commissions, I'm going to be totally honest, I undervalued myself and my art. And I definitely know that because the like first or second person to ever commission me literally couldn't believe that I had my prices where they were. Like, they messaged me and was like, am I like reading this right? You're offering, you know, character commissions for like $25. And I was like, yeah. I kind of knew that I was undervaluing my artwork. And my thought process at the time was, I was very, very nervous about doing commissions for the first time. And I really just wanted to get some commissions under my belt to get more comfortable with the process and how to do it. So I offered my commissions at a discounted rate because I didn't feel like my art was good enough to charge more for it, but I also didn't know what I was doing. And so that's kind of why I went that route. I don't recommend doing that, to be honest. The obvious reason being, I mean, it's unfair to yourself. I was doing like a $25 commission that took me like several hours. The experience of doing commissions is worth some value to me. So it wasn't a total like loss, but it is very like unfair to yourself to work that way. A lot of artists in the art community will tell you, you never want to undervalue yourself, because people's perception of what art is worth also lowers, and that hurts everybody. So people who do charge more, because it takes a long time. I was essentially working for less than minimum wage whenever I charged $25 for something that took me, let's say, like 6 hours of like altogether, like the total work being like 6 hours. It's just not a good like payoff. This goes back to sort of making sure that you are at that baseline for your art skill. I don't think I was at that baseline, and I think that's part of why I charged so low. Looking back now, I do wish I had just like put more effort into improving my art and then charging what it's actually worth. The best piece of advice I could give you as far as pricing your commissions is to look at other artists who are similar to your art style and see what they're charging for their commissions. That's what I did whenever I was looking at pricing my commissions this time. I found like 2 or 3 artists that I knew had commissions open, and I looked at their commission sheets, and just to kind of get an idea of what sort of price range they were charging, so I could also get an idea of what I should be charging. I feel like this is the best way to sort of make sure that everyone is kind of in the same range or on the same page. And again, this keeps people from really undervaluing like what art is worth. If you don't know where to find those artists, you can look up hashtags on Instagram, commission sheet or commission info, and look at those hashtags and just see if you can find an artist with a similar style to yours and just see what they're charging. And one more thing about pricing / payment, I really recommend charging, whenever you are charging people or doing payment, doing half up front and half at the end. And the reason why I say this is, to me, this is the most fair option for both parties, because if you were to save the payment for the end, you always run that risk of doing all of this work and that person not paying you. After you did all of this hard work, to not get paid would be awful. So you don't want to do that. I wouldn't recommend doing payment up front. I know some artists do that. To me, sometimes this can scare off people because there's so many horror stories online. I've seen a lot of authors on Threads talk about how they basically got ghosted by an artist after they paid for them to do book illustrations for them, which is a real bummer because it literally, whenever artists do that, it makes everybody look bad. And so to kind of help mitigate that sort of situation, I just feel like it's a really good idea to do half up front and then half at the end or towards the end. The way that I personally do it, I don't send any sketches, any thumbnails. I won't actually send that to the client at all until the first half invoice is fully cleared. And then towards the end, I will go ahead and send the second part of the payment, and then I won't send the final files or anything until that second payment has cleared. I personally haven't had any issues as far as payment and people not paying or anything like that, but I feel like this is the best way to mitigate you getting screwed over and also the client feeling like they're gonna get screwed over. As far as like how to get payments, I personally just use PayPal. I know that that's not the only option. Obviously, there are a ton of options out there. I personally only have experience with PayPal, and I really like them. I think their interface is really easy to use. They do have fees. I think there's a fee before you pull it into your bank account or something like that, but there are small fees with it. But to me, it's very easy to use. I don't have to learn another system. Like, it's just super easy. So once you have everything set up, you're going to create a commission sheet. There are a million ways to do commission sheets. You can look at other artists and see what they do just sort of get an idea of things. This one is my commission sheet. So the biggest thing with commission sheets is to just make sure that you have your prices, have a few examples, try to have an example of every type of art that you offer. So if you offer bust, which is like the shoulders up of a character, or half body or full body, you just want to make sure that you have like an example of each one if you can. Some people will offer like sketches or line art only, and then fully rendered or just base colors. So yeah, there's a lot of options and ways to do it. Also make sure that you have a list of things that you will draw versus won't draw. This just keeps people from requesting a commission from you with something that you're really not comfortable with drawing, because you will have people ask for some crazy things sometimes, so it's best to just kind of put that on there. So with your commission sheet, you also need to let people know basically how to contact you for requesting a commission, whether it's your DMs. I personally created a commission request form, like a Google form basically, where people can input their information, and so far I really like it. I feel like it's very easy and streamlined. One of the things I really like about it is I can require certain information, so I can require reference images, which really helps me because when I did commissions the first time around, sometimes it was like difficult getting reference images from people. So this was very nice because before anybody even the request even hits me, they have to have some sort of reference photo. So that's really helpful. I started out with just literally people just DMing me on Instagram, and that worked really well too. So the last thing that I kind of want to share is just how the commission process works, at least for me. And I want to share this because if you've never done commissions before and you're kind of like,
okay, so what happens after I get somebody to commission me?
This is step by step what I do personally. So somebody has requested a commission from you, you do your little like happy dance, and then we get to work. What I do first is I will figure out how much their commission is going to cost, and then I will set up an invoice through PayPal. I will send that invoice to them. I'll also email them and kind of let them know if I have multiple commissions at once. I kind of let them know where they are in line, or just like give them sort of a time frame, and I'll just let them know, hey, once this invoice clears, then I'll get started on your commission. And sometimes I'll go ahead and start working on thumbnail sketches, but technically I try not to do it before I get paid, just to keep me from doing any unnecessary work. But once the invoices come through, I start working on some thumbnail sketches. I like to do at least three different thumbnail sketches. This just gives them a lot of variety to pick from. So I try to change them up a good bit, make each one pretty different, and just kind of see what they like, what they don't like. If they want to mix and match certain things, we can do that. And yeah, just go from there. And so then I will email them and send them the thumbnail sketches and just get their feedback, basically get a better idea of what direction they want to go. Once they get back to me with all of that info, then I start moving on to line art and base colors. I usually try to find 2 to 3 different color palette options, and I will finish that. I'll do the base colors, and then I'll send that to them again and just get their sort of opinion on what color palettes they like. If they don't like any of them for some reason, we can kind of go back and forth and see what specifically they want color-wise. And then once they have approved that, they'll send it back to me, and then from here is where I will start rendering and finalizing things. Here's where I'll also send the second half of the payment. So I do not send any completed files until the payment is finished. And that just helps kind of protect me. That way they are not getting the completed product until it's actually paid for. Because if it's not paid for, I personally have never run into this, but you never want somebody to basically run off with your commission and not pay you the rest of the money. So yeah, that's just to mitigate that. I always wait until that payment has cleared before I give the final commission. And then after that, that's basically it. From there, we have a completed commission. I personally feel like commissions are really fun, but also really scary. I know they were for me at least. I hope that you feel a little bit more confident as you start doing commissions. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. I would love to help answer some of them. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!